And Tim Federle, like, did you write this season for me specifically? Because this is for me.
It's very niche. It's extremely niche.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to After Broadway, the podcast where we deep dive into anything and everything musical theater from the comfort of my car. I'm Tara.
I'm Stefania.
And in today's episode, we're talking about Better Nate Than Ever, which is a new, I would say, like, TV movie streaming
on Disney Plus.
I mean, by the time this episode is released, it's not super new, but it is available to stream. And the reason that we are talking about it is because, you know, last year, as we all know, the year of the movie musical, and I feel like this year, so far, we haven't been blessed with on-screen movie musicals, so literally anything that we can grab, we did. And this one was super cute. So before we get into like our full reviews, what did you know about Better Nate Than Ever before watching?
So I knew of its existence, basically. I knew it was a middle grade novel. So for uninitiated, kind of a middle grade novel is typically the audience is kids age 9 to 12 years old, 9 to 13 years old. And so our main character is 13. So this book is catered to middle grade. So I was a little bit old when it came out for a middle grade book.
That's fine.
but because I knew of Tim Federle, I knew he had other books, like kind of cocktail recipe books out. And this was kind of his first narrative novel. And obviously we know so much more from him now. But at the time I was like, oh, that's so interesting. A book about a kid's experience of Broadway and theater, which is always just going to appeal to me. So I didn't get a chance to read it, but I did know of kind of what it was and kind of the general storyline of it. So to get to see a movie made and to get to see it in Tim Federle's vision was really, really exciting.
I love how you said that you're a bit too old for a middle grade book when I literally bought you from like Broadway A to Z, which is a children's book for your birthday one year.
Look, I have read middle grade being way too old. This one, I didn't have the time. Okay, I didn't get through it. I did not get through it. I read like a chapter of it, and what I can say is that the voice of the character, it's written from the character of Nate's perspective, and his voice is so unique and special. And I think having watched the movie, it really came across in just the characterization of Nate on screen and the performance of Ruby Wood.
So I never heard of the book. Again, I think I saw, because we know of Tim Federle, obviously from High School Musical, the musical, the series fame now. But I think I saw maybe on TikTok or Twitter that the trailer had come out. I was like, oh, this looks so cute. And then I want to say like a week or so before it dropped on Disney Plus, they must have had a New York screening, and so many Broadway celebs went to see it and were like, this movie is exactly what every theater kid needs right now. It's just a super like heartwarming, lovely story, and can confirm it is a super heartwarming, lovely story. Speaking of Ruby Wood, and I literally never thought that we would mention the words Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the musical, ever again. But I think I saw him.
So soon. Bring it up so soon.
So I was looking through the program that I have from when I saw it, and I don't have the insert. It's like somewhere in a bin somewhere.
Sure.
But there were 3 kids that played Charlie, and Ruby Wood was one of them. And again, as you know, I kind of blocked this show like out of my memory, so I don't know if I saw him, but if I did, he was great. And I do think it was him, because I specifically remember, and this is again, so sorry for our podcast listeners, this is video only content. I think it was him because his little picture is like the cutest thing ever.
Oh my God, it is so cute.
And this tiny kid just playing like such a big character was exciting. So, to talk about the movie a bit, we were just watching a couple Tim Federle interviews before we started recording, and something that he said, and I love, and I think that we campaign for this all the time too, is that he said, you know, when you can cast a theater kid, why would you do anything else? They they do it all for you. Like, theater kids are the only way that you should cast this. And I think for a movie like this, that again is just like dropping streaming wise on Disney Plus, you do not need any name recognition here at all.
Absolutely.
So why not give a kid a chance to like be a star in a movie? And he was great.
He filled out the whole movie with theater people. I think, you know, every single person cast, he was like, I'm going to keep theater people employed, because this was obviously filmed over the pandemic. So every person cast in this, from minor roles to major roles, all theater people.
The most minor role of father of Nate, Norbert Leo Butz, who tragically didn't sing.
The most minor role of Mandy Gonzalez as the drama teacher.
Yes.
Or like Priscilla Lopez as the casting agent for A Solitary Woman.
Exactly.
You know, just like little Easter eggs for you. But yes, sorry, back to Ruby Wood. An absolute star. I watched this movie with my parents, and at the end, my mom's just like, he's amazing.
I know, it's amazing. So cute. Yeah. So I guess like the premise of this story is that Nate and his friend, I can't even remember the friend's name.
Libby.
Nate and Libby are in middle school, and Nate is obsessed with musical theater. He's got, you know, like Wicked posters on his wall. Me too. I'm pretty sure like
this was a very relatable 13-year-old to us, you know?
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure the opening scene of the movie is him talking to Libby on the phone, and she's like giving him a pep talk because they're waiting for a cast list to go up, and they're talking about whether Wicked should have lost to Avenue Q. I'm like, this content is what I'm here for. But the cast list that he's waiting for is for, I guess, like a la Hamilton
Lincoln.
fame, Lincoln, the musical.
At his middle school.
Yeah, it's Lincoln, I think, like the rock musical. We never heard a song. Tragic that we never heard a song. But he does not get a part. He does not get the part of Lincoln, and he does not even get the part of what he thought he would get, maybe, is the understudy. He is in the ensemble with Libby. And they find out that there is an open call in New York for Lilo and Stitch, the musical, which I have to say, and I think I saw this for the very first time on Tim from Broadway Up Close, his Instagram, all of the like branding of Lilo and Stitch, the musical. I want to say it was like summer 2021-ish, maybe a spring 2021 when they were filming.
Pre-Broadway reopening, you know, they were kind of lucky. They had the chance
to put the signage up for sure. So they find out that there's an open call. They're looking for Lilo and Stitch, and they decide to take a bus from
run away from home. Yeah, from Pittsburgh
to New York. Keep in mind, these kids are like 13 years old, which we'll talk about my issues with this movie later. And we haven't even mentioned brother of Nate, star of our lives, Josh Bassett is in this movie. And he's at like a track meet this weekend, so no one really knows that. And the
his parents are out of
away.
Town.
Yeah.
Brother Anthony is Viscount
the way that Antonies are running our lives right now is a whole different conversation, but go on.
To semi-timestamp this, Bridgerton just came out and we can't even talk about it. But yes, brother is at a track meet. So really Nate, he's lying to everyone. He's saying he's just at Libby's house, but then they take the bus to New York City to get to this open call audition.
Yes. Where we meet Christina Alabato.
Yes. And Brooks Ashmanskas. Yeah. What if Brooks Ashmanskas was Bernie Telsey? You know, it does ask that question.
Yeah.
And of course, chaos ensues.
Yes. And one of the things that I thought was so funny about this open casting call is that Christina Alabato, who's like she's like checking everybody in, she tells everybody that if you are not here with a guardian, like, do not even try to get in. And that didn't even cross my mind, but also, like, obviously all of these kids are under 18 because they were trying to cast, like, very young children for the characters of Lilo and Stitch, which then, like, kind of led us to a conversation off the mic of, like, kids and theater and what that's like. And I was saying to you that someone that's like a really good follow, she's not in a show currently, but I'm sure she will be again, is Presley Ryan, who was the understudy of Delia in Beetlejuice. Actually, I wonder if she's going to be understudying again. Beetlejuice will be open by the time this episode comes out, so like you tell us. But she would sort of like vlog her life of what it was like to be a kid in high school and also be on Broadway. And to me, the most interesting part was to show Wednesdays, because obviously she couldn't go to school if she was performing at 1 o'clock. So she would do her school at the theater and then, you know, hang out there for the rest of the day. And I also remember, like, ABF finishing high school when he's in Dear Evan Hansen and he had to have a tutor. Think about, like, the kids in Matilda. I've read so much of, like, Gavroche and, like, young Cosette, young Eponine, how they would have to do school for, like, the second half of the musical that they weren't in, because obviously the kids are only in the first part of Les Mis, except for Gavroche. He shows up. Yeah. And I feel like there was a conversation maybe when Les Mis was in Toronto, maybe not Les Mis, Waitress, like, that Lulu doesn't bow because she's too young. Like, there's certain conversations.
No, Lulu bows because she's only in the final scene.
Right. Maybe it was Les Mis. Like, do the kids stay for the bows because they...
I am remembering, but yes, there was a show where the kids were only in the first act and not in the second act, and then... Yeah, they did not bow because it's like, oh, they went home 2 hours ago.
I can only think of Les Mis, not Gavroche, because he's definitely in Act 2. But Act 2. Like, young Cosette and young Eponine are really only in the first act of Les Mis. I remember watching Ramin's vlogs when he was Valjean on Broadway, and he would, like, go to see the kids sometimes just, like, doing homework backstage. He's like, hey, how's it going?
It's kind of interesting because some shows have, like, 1 or 2 kids, or, like, 1 or 2 kids on stage, so there's 4 or 5 of them, because I think for kids you always have to have a standby available.
Yeah.
And there's some shows like an Annie, like a Matilda, like, I don't know, that are just full of kids. And I can't, those must be one crazy like different experiences than being the only, School of Rock, exactly, being the only kid versus being, you know, one of 20, 30, 40, 50, because I think they probably have to have additional understudies and covers for when there's children, to ensure their kids' health. They probably don't want them, for the most part, going on 8 shows a week. School commitments for them. You want them to stay at least a little bit well-rounded. I remember when Matilda was on Broadway, they had 3 Matildas when it opened, and they wouldn't even release the schedule of who was going on when, and the kids weren't allowed to like sign autographs at all for people at the stage door, because they really wanted to protect the kids' safety and have like kind of that barrier between them. I really think Kids in Broadway is a really, really fascinating thing.
And they didn't obviously get very into it in this movie.
No, this is about the audition process.
But you do see, like, the stage moms a little bit in this movie, the parents that are, like, hanging out. I thought it was really interesting when we get to, like, the later final callbacks that the parents were not in the theater with the kids. It sort of like drop off, come pick up. I don't know if that's, like, reminiscent to real life, but there's obviously many interesting parts to Kids on Broadway that we don't even know about.
Yeah. And I think it was quite interesting to see the casting process, because I'm sure it's extremely different to cast a child than it is to cast an adult.
Yes.
There was a certain softness or generosity that you would maybe have with the kids that you wouldn't necessarily always have with the adults. And you want to, like, foster that love while you're rejecting these kids.
No, it's true. And it's also some things that, like, I don't think I ever would have realized about an audition process, but, like, some kid could be knocked out immediately because they're too tall, you know?
Yeah,
like,
they don't have the right look. You get typed out is what you'd call it. They do it at a lot of auditions as well, like, for everything. But for a kid, that must be so much more devastating versus an adult who kind of understands, okay, I'm, 5'4", they're looking for someone 5'8", whatever.
Yeah, I can only imagine all of the tears that casting directors have seen from kids of just, like, unintentionally breaking their hearts, you know?
Yeah, it's devastating. And this is Nate's first audition ever, so he kind of goes in not knowing what to expect at all. So every callback is exciting for him. Whereas
when he sings Let It Go at his callback.
Amazing. And they're like, wow, we've never had a young boy come in and sing Let It Go.
Which is so interesting because also when we were watching these interviews, Ruby Wood for his audition sang Defying Gravity.
Of course.
Which is very much on the same playing field.
It's similar.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, we're getting like a little all over the place, but I watched this movie with my parents. And the moment in the movie that made my dad absolutely crack up is when they asked him, do you have a monologue? And he's like, and then he starts doing this monologue. I'm like, where is this from? And he's just so dramatically into it. I'm like, this has got to be from some movie starring only women that, you know, has a big audience with gay men. Yes. And it turns out it was Designing Women. And I was like, that's amazing. He was so committed to that. And this was something that I asked my parents at dinner. I said, if you had to do a monologue, what scene from a movie or TV show would you be able to do at the drop of the hat? And I said, I think I could probably do the scene in The Devil Wears Prada. Oh, so you think this has nothing to do with you? Your sweater.
I mean, give us the whole thing, why don't you?
Let's not. But do you think there's a speech that a monologue you'd be able to do for a movie or a TV show right now?
I mean, it would, like... My real answer would be, like, it depends on the tone of what I was auditioning for to just, like, be able to drop something. But, like, I feel... I mean, literally any of the scenes from any of the High School Musicals I could give you
Absolutely.
Right the whole movie I could give you from top to bottom if you're interested, with the songs included. Like, I am ready to play all parts. Yeah. Choreography. Yeah, that I think the audition scenes were, like, super interesting. We'll save, like, the end final callback scene for later, but we haven't even mentioned Lisa Kudrow is in this movie as Nate's Aunt Heidi. She is, I would say, a struggling actress, but, like... She's
someone that Nate idolizes, you know?
Because she was on Broadway, which I love.
Exactly. You know, Nate's mom and her sister, his aunt, are not in touch anymore, but he, as a lover of Broadway and of theater, just admires his Aunt Heidi so much because she's been on Broadway. And what I liked about this movie is that it kind of was a bit realistic in showing she is auditioning, she is working a survival job to pay the bills. It's not, you know, 100% glamorous. And even though, you know, it ends well for Nate, but it's not a fairy tale experience for everyone.
She is a caterer at bar mitzvahs at the Museum of Natural History, which is a very luxe bar mitzvah.
It is a very luxe bar mitzvah.
But, you know, she's got to do what she's got to do.
Was that Ellen Marsh?
Yes, it was. As security
guard. Security guard.
It was. There's just many Broadway cameos in this.
I was like, I know you.
Yeah. So to make a long story short and finish off this movie, Nate obviously gets cast in Lilo and Stitch.
As the matinee Stitch.
Yes.
To do 2 shows a week.
The way that this kid is in full Disney World Stitch costume, I will never be over, because the audition said that the kid would be wearing a blue unitard, and that is really not what we got. We got the full theme park costume.
Yeah. Realistically, if we're wearing that costume, we're casting an adult. We're not... A short one, maybe, but we're not casting a child to be in that overheated, furry...
you can see the, like,
theme park
sweat
outfit.
All over him when he takes off the head. Like, that is... Where's the fans that they have in those costumes at Disney World? Like, why doesn't he have one?
Also, realistically, I'm thinking we might do a puppet. Is what we might actually do.
The most recent, like, Winnie the Pooh show that was apparently amazing. Sure.
I'm thinking of, like Olaf, even, you know? Like...
Yeah, or also I say Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is, like, the worst musical, but I actually think the worst musical I saw was The Lorax, and that also had a puppet.
Interesting. But so I was, back to the book, the musical that Nate is auditioning for in the book is actually E.T. the musical. So...
Imagine that costume.
Oh, hideous. But there's a lot of kids in that show too. So he's auditioning for E.T. the musical. But because it's on Disney Plus and Tim Federle has such a great relationship with Disney, you know, they got to use Disney property like Lilo and Stitch. Yeah. They got to film at the New Amsterdam Theater, which is the Disney-owned Broadway theater. So we got that company synergy in this movie. We really got it all working out together.
But the only thing that I could think of as soon as they announced Lilo and Stitch the musical was, where is Finding Nemo the musical?
I also thought of that.
As we know, obsessed.
I think Lilo and Stitch the musical could replace Finding Nemo the musical at Animal Kingdom. Isn't Finding Nemo closing?
I hope not.
On March 15th, 2020, the show had its final performance before Walt Disney World Resort closed due to COVID-19. It was announced that a new reimagined version of the show entitled Finding Nemo, The Big Blue and Beyond will premiere in spring 2022 as part of Walt Disney World Resort's 50th anniversary celebration. So we're not sure what it's going to be. I'm nervous.
The big blue world. Wow, we can't lose those songs though.
No, that cast recording is amazing.
It's available to stream, and we highly recommend it.
It is. I would be
Highlight
upset
of the
if
trip.
we went back to Disney World and it wasn't there.
I know, because
and that's all.
we really thought that we would have made it in our park hopping adventure to go see it again, but we never
we
did.
Try and do it again.
We were too late. We were like 30 minutes too late, which tragic. If we only saw it, if we only saw it once, that's also like kind of special too, you know?
Yeah. No, it was magical. I love Finding Nemo the musical.
So maybe someone will put that on at the New Amsterdam Theater in like 2050.
This 45-minute musical. Just like,
they could stretch it to like 80 minutes, I feel. Add an intermission in there.
You're out. Okay, that was enough. That was enough.
Speaking of the Lilo and Stitch musical, there is one song that was written. There are 3 original songs in this movie, but there was one song specifically written for this musical, which is No One Gets Left Behind, which is Stitch literally singing a power ballad about how much family is important.
This song was amazing. Okay.
It was great.
Ohana means family, and family means no one gets left behind. And when, he kind of, Nate kind of botched the first half of the song.
Really did.
He really botched it. And then he turned around, he found his light, and he nailed the second half of the song.
Sorry, give some credit where credit is due to Anthony himself.
Brother Anthony.
Standing up here being like, you were never embarrassing to me.
I'm not embarrassed of you.
And I was like, oh my God, this is so sweet. And then he obviously finds his light and sings.
Nailed it.
A great song. But yeah, like there are, as I said, 3 original songs in this. The other 2 are Big Time, which we get a huge musical number for.
Like a big fantasy dream sequence. On,
you know what it reminded me of?
A set.
High School Musical 3, A Night to Remember. The whole...
Sure. They're on like a set, basically. It looks...
And also kind of mixed with I Want It All.
Yeah, I see that. What it was kind of giving, like, it felt almost like a tribute to old Hollywood musical movies. So, I was going to say La La Land, but La La Land itself is a tribute to these old Hollywood musical movies. So, like, A Singing in the Rain, where they're on a separate set, and the buildings and the cars are cardboard and feel very flat.
Yeah.
And very much, like, built for the movie only. And it felt like the character of Nate was imagining himself on stage or in these musical movies in his dream sequence. It also gave me kind of like everybody's talking about Jamie from this last year, a similar dream sequence kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And I loved the way that they used that dream sequence for Big Time because, Nate is kind of going through the world, normally not necessarily trying to fit in, but, surrounded by people very different from him. But in his mind, when he has this song playing in his head, and he has this amazing world inside his head that no one else can see, and it's full of color and life, and I don't know, I thought it was a really magical number, and he was a star in it.
Also featuring some of Broadway's best ensemble members out there, including Alex Wong, who is like front and center. If you want someone to follow on TikTok, follow Alex Wong because he's the best.
He's great.
But yeah, I agree. That was like, and also you really get to hear like Ruby sing in that song. And I would assume, just because, doing a project like this feels probably pretty close to his life, but I don't know. I think that being in this movie was probably like really special for him to get to live out like maybe what a lot of kids' dreams are of loving musical theater. And it's also great because it's not like explicitly alluded to. There's like hints of it. Tim Federle said there's like 3 books in the series, you said, right?
Yeah, there are 3 books.
In the
5, 6, 7, Nate. Oh. And that's a great title.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, Nate. And Nate Expectations. So
not as good as 5, 6, 7.
No, 5, 6, 7, 8 is amazing. It's the best one of the 3. So Better Late Than Never, 5, 6, 7, 8, and Nate Expectations.
And it's either, I don't know exactly if it's in book 2 or book 3, but Nate comes out as gay, but it is alluded to that he is not interested in girls because Libby and him have this like moment of she loves him and he loves her too, but not in the same way. But it's also turns into like a really beautiful friendship moment. But it's great to see young queer kids being represented on such a big platform like Disney Plus as well, which I have many thoughts on this because there's a lot going on in real life, politics wise, that with Disney and
the relationship to gay people.
Yeah.
And
so I don't know what is directly linked here. There's like sort of up in the air of like what's directly linked with the politics side and like the people that work at the parks as well. There's like a lot going on in real life for that, but to have this movie still be there and still be like available to stream and for kids to watch, I think it's still a positive at the end of the day. And hopefully, I don't know, I think anytime that there's like a time that a kid can watch this who loves theater and is like, oh, this could be a real career for me, is exciting. Because a lot of the times it's looked down upon when you're like, I want to be an actor, I want to be a singer, I want to be a performer. It's like, well, that's not a sustainable job. And whether it is or not is an entirely different conversation. But I love these like go follow your dreams type movies. Although wildly unrealistic that he goes to New York, doesn't get caught, books his first ever audition for a huge Broadway musical, and then gets called into the principal's office, and he thinks that he's going to be caught, and yet his parents are like, we're so proud of you. I'm like, did you know that your kid ran away to New York on a Greyhound bus?
This is prime parenting right here, okay? I will say, like, I think anytime you can get to see a character just being unabashedly themselves, even you saw his Aunt Heidi, he gets to overhear his Aunt Heidi speaking to her coworkers saying, this kid is already funnier than I am. He has so much more, so much more going for him than, like, she wishes she was able to be as confident as him. And I think anyone, even if you're not necessarily like him, to get to see a character just own who they are is magical. But the character that I related to most was Libby, because she was someone who loved theater like Nate does, but knows her calling is not being a performer, and she wants to be in that world, but also knows that is not for her. And her kind of discovery in this movie is, you don't have to be an actor or performer to be involved in the theater. There are so many other jobs that you can have. And she kind of comes to wanting to be an agent by the end of it.
Love that.
That was great. Just she's already negotiating. But there are so many other avenues you can get to be involved in theater and, work in your line of passion without being the star. And I thought that was a really wonderful thing to show as well in the movie.
I mean, like, let's take us as example here. Like, we
absolutely.
are both, obviously, as everyone knows, massive musical theater fans. Both of us not performers, but needed some sort of a way to, like, get that fix, Mm-hmm. So I do, like, you're 100% right to see yourself as someone like Libby who is just, like, a fan of the arts and can appreciate it for what it is, but knows that it's never going to be a job where she's performing on stage. Like, first of all, to realize that at 13 years old, girl.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That self-awareness. Wish we all had that.
Yeah. And then also, like, at the same time, you have side character Josh Bassett, who is, like a track and field star until he injures himself.
He kind of like looks down on his brother and kind of defines himself, and his parents define him through his athleticism. And then, does he break his ankle and kind of has to reassess everything? Yeah.
And at the same time, he realizes while watching his brother go for his dreams that, like, maybe I shouldn't have judged him for wanting to sing all around the house. Like, these are things that we should embrace. My favorite part, obviously, of the movie was the Wicked sing-along in the car driving back to Pittsburgh.
I mean, just that whole, like, kind of 30-second sequence where the actor and actress who play Nate and Anthony's mom and dad are actual real-life married couple who met while performing the original Broadway cast of Wicked, Norbert Leo Butz and Michelle Federer, who played Fiyero and Nessa Rose, respectively. When I told my mom that was the original Fiyero...
Imagine, though, if Fiyero and Nessa ended up together...
Crazy.
What a twist.
I mean, they did in real life. When I told my mom that was the original Fiyero, she was like, him? He was like, he's so old. I'm like, well, it was 20 years ago.
Yeah. But you know what? He still got it. Vocally, he still got it.
when I saw Norbert Leo Butz in My Fair Lady playing old man, basically, which is the opposite of Fiyero. Amazing. A star. And they kind of made a Wicked reference, and then you smash cut to Anthony, Nate, and Libby singing, belting Defying Gravity in the car on the way home. So fun. So much fun.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the biggest Easter egg in the movie for some theater fans.
Yes. Super fun. And then we end the movie with the third and final original song in the credits, which is About to Go Off. It's cute. Like, it was fun.
We got a little montage.
And then we should mention that the music is done by Gabriel Mann, who you said writes mostly for like sitcoms, but we
sitcom scoring and TV show scoring.
The connection was High School Musical, the musical, the series. Which, now that we're here,
let's discuss.
So Tim Federle, obviously director, writer. Was he producer of this movie? I feel like if he wasn't, he should be. I don't know.
I'm gonna guess yes. We're gonna go with yes.
A man of many hats for this movie. Is the
so amazing to get to adapt your own work, to write a book, and then to get to adapt it for screen. And so even if it's not going to be a direct adaptation, it's what you chose. Like, you have the final say. Very lucky.
And also be able to like cast it. He has said that this is like a semi-autobiographical story because he also loved theater, wanted to perform, went on a Greyhound bus to New York City, like did all that. So to get to cast it with like a book that's been living in his head for the last 10 years with the people that he wanted.
And I believe it was inspired a lot because he worked as an associate choreographer on Billy Elliot, which had a million kids in that cast.
Yeah.
And he worked so much with the kids and casting the kids and bringing them up to speed to do replacements and stuff. And that was like where he got the inspiration for this book. So really like a close to home project for him.
Yeah. But we know him as the executive producer of High School Musical, the musical, the series. And he did say that Josh Bassett is his good luck charm because he was the first person cast for High School Musical and also the first person cast for Better Nate Than Ever. I'm like, well, are we surprised? Like, we shouldn't be surprised.
We love Josh Bassett.
Yeah. So High School Musical, the musical, the series, we never did a follow-up episode to season 1 because season 2 was not great. And
it was not as good, no.
We were really let down. But season 3 is coming potentially this summer, maybe in the fall. I want to say summer because
I think it's going to be summer.
Camp.
We might have a release date by the time this episode comes out because we're recording very early. But I believe it's going to be summer because it's about summer camp.
Yes. So all we know at time of record is that they are doing songs from Frozen. They are doing songs from, obviously, the High School Musical trilogy. And then I feel like I read that they're doing songs from Camp Rock. And Tim Federle, like, did you write this season for me specifically? Because this is for me.
It's very niche. It's extremely niche. But, you know, it kind of, like, speaks to even this movie. You know, we're like, oh, this is very niche, only for us. But I actually think many people feel that this is written directly to their hearts, you know?
Yes. I don't know. High School Musical, the series season 3 is, like, pretty specific to me. But, like, I'm sure there's other people like me that love all 3 projects individually. But what we do know, which is, like... I mean, I think we expected, but still disappointing nonetheless. 3-time Grammy Award winner Olivia Rodrigo has been bumped down to a reoccurring character.
Well, I'm going to say that I think this was her choice. I don't think she was, like, fired, or I don't think she was, like, demoted. I think this was, we'll take you in whatever way we can get you.
Well, it's interesting, too, because, again, we never, like, talked about this last year, but you and I talked about this when Sour came out. And obviously, hearing it for the first time, we were like, mega hit. Little did we know, mega hit. Yeah. And it was a conversation of what's Olivia's contract. And I think it was 3 seasons. And then we weren't sure the life after that. But also, like, is this the time to end? Because there are other characters that have been bumped down to reoccurring. I think, what's his name?
Is Joe Serafini?
Yes, he's now reoccurring. Yeah.
I mean, it would be crazy if they all went to the exact same summer camp, but...
Would it?
Would it, though? I mean, as everyone knows, we met working at a summer camp, and the same crew of kids would show up like every session, every summer.
And also, I worked there the year before that we worked there, and the same kids rolled through. And then when Char and I left and you were still there, they stayed.
Same kids.
And I would like to think that they thought that we would still be there, so that's why they stay for us. Not for the camp.
I mean, not to like toot my own horn, but this the second summer I worked there, which ended up being my last summer at that camp, you know, the kids always ask you, which is something that I used to ask my counselors when I went to summer camp. Are you coming back next summer? And I have to be like, I don't know, guys.
Yeah, you never want to.
And then you're like kind of breaking these kids' hearts.
Yeah, I remember too, because I very well knew that my last summer there was my last summer there, and I remember this kids asked the same question, like, will we see you next year? Like, maybe. And then in my head I'm like, absolutely not. But I mean, we've said this on many episodes, like, that was like the best summer of one of the best summers of my life. Like,
absolutely.
And absolutely. Also, like, to think about, you know, what we were saying before of not being able to, like, we love theater, we're not performing, but doing that, I was like, that, we were in our element there. That was one of the most fun things ever. And I felt like a star. Like, I'm sure you did too. It was one of those things that, like,
being a camp counselor at a theater camp is an experience like no else.
We were way too hard
celebrities.
On the kids. Like, but that didn't matter. They were still, like, loved us, you know?
I feel like for the most part, the kids wanted it. And not every kid, but for the most part, the kids wanted that experience.
You know, when we sat in silence for like 15 minutes, they didn't want that.
We're going to talk about our horrible camper management systems.
The ball game where...
Horrible.
Wow.
Horrible.
Anyone listening out there, this is important information. Anyone that is maybe, I guess, like, by the time this episode comes out, you are probably already in pre-camp if you're in Canada. If you're in the States, like, maybe around the same time of being a camp counselor. We have a game for you that if you are working at a theater camp and your kids don't know their lines, and it is the day
they never
of the
do.
show.
They never do. They never
do. But you know what? The show always turns out well. But
bad rehearsal, good show. That's how it goes.
It was a terrible rehearsal. And after the rehearsal, we went back to our camp and we each split up into groups. You had kids, I had kids, Shara had kids, and then I was like, okay, everyone take out your scripts, and let's go through the script. And the game is that you start from the top of the act and you pass the ball around to the person whose line is next. And when you forget the line, you start again. Now, thinking back, this was cruel. This is
horrible.
And
these are like 8-year-olds.
But you know what? The show that night, the best one yet.
The show was good. I know, because we were like panicking at the rehearsal.
We really put it in their brains that afternoon. That
I think my parents are just my mom came to the show. She's like, that was great. And
my parents were obsessed with it. They were like, this is the best one you guys have done. I'm like, oh my God, if you only saw rehearsal this afternoon.
We were
anyway, just thinking about High School Musical camp made me think of that moment. We took it way too seriously, but also never regret. It was my shining moment. No. I will never have a career.
We were also teenagers at that time.
And also, like, I grew up going to camps like that, and I was expected of the same that I expected of the kids, you know? Like, you sign up to do a show, you gotta know your lines, you gotta know your scenes, you gotta know your dances.
Here's the thing, Tara got leading roles in these shows, so she had lots of lines. I was like a 5-line kid, okay?
And the 5-line kid should
Memorization has never been my strength. Memorization has never been my strength.
Maybe that's why I got the leading roles, because memorization was my strength, you know?
No, never my strength.
Anyway, we digress. So yeah, we know very little about the next season. I will be sad if this is the end of High School Musical, the musical, the series.
I believe it is. Am I crazy?
But over?
I thought it was the end of Riverdale, and I was wrong. So
the way that we
final season.
Seriously thought it was the end of Riverdale, and then they got renewed for a new season.
I'm pretty sure this is the final season of High School Musical, the musical, the series. Quote me on that.
Which is, like, kind of emotional for me and you, because I feel that High School Musical, although it came out pre-pandemic, we would watch weekly. We would watch Love, Victor, season 2, and then High School Musical, the musical, the series, season 2. And, like, it's a joke, but it's also not a joke that got us through, like, some of the darkest days of the pandemic.
Every week I'd look forward to, like, we would watch on Wednesday nights. Wednesday night, we would just get on Scener, and we'd watch our shows.
Yeah.
And Love, Victor also ending this summer with its 3rd season, and I'm very sad. I'm really sad about it.
Although, again, both seasons of Love, Victor and High School Musical, like, not the best. But still will be
season 1 was
tragic
the
to
star
lose
of
them.
These. All of these, talking about Better Nate Than Ever, talking about High School Musical, the musical, the series, talking about Love, Victor, have these queer characters in them at shows targeted for young people.
And us.
And us, adults. Adults who want to be children. But I think that's, like, really, really wonderful. When you think back to Love, Victor season 1, where they didn't even put it on Disney Plus, they put it on Hulu because who even knows? Now we have all of these things available for young people streaming, with these characters who are unabashedly themselves, who are gay, who are queer. I think it's very special to me. I don't know. It's very...
Well, it's just like
big.
a step finally in the right direction. And although, again, we don't know because we haven't seen the 3rd season, but if they do cut down Joe's character, Seb, then I feel like we lose some of that, like, love story of him and Carlos. So I don't know. It will be interesting to see. You know that there's a lot of cameos from the movies, like Corbin Bleu is in this season. Yeah.
I want Vanessa Hudgens. I want you to come on. I know she won't.
They did ask her, though, at the Oscars what she thought about, like, Olivia Rodrigo playing...
Gabriella.
Well, like, Nene playing Gabriella. Yeah. And she was like, it's so weird to see the name Gabriela Montez show up again in, like, mainstream media after all of these years. And she was like, I can't imagine anyone else but me being associated to that character.
Sure.
Yeah. But then was also, like, Olivia's a star, which we know.
Of course. Yeah, Sneaker Night did not have the same impact as Sour.
Baby V! Wow. Baby, come back. That song, though. Baby, come back to me.
Her music career, underrated.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's sum up our thoughts on Better Nate Than Ever. My final thoughts on this is that this is just a wonderful feel-good movie. I, an adult, watched it with my parents, adults, and the end, we're just like, that was sweet. That was lovely. It just made me smile. It made me happy. Ruby Wood is a star in it. And I just walked away from it absolutely smiling. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 Wicked posters.
Love.
That is my ranking system, my rating system.
I also agree. This is a lovely movie for all reasons stated in this episode. Like, if you are a young person listening to us, watch it. If you are a parent listening to us, watch it with your kids. Like, this is a movie for everybody. It's also a cool 90 minutes, which we love.
Amazing.
And it kind of, like, gives you everything you want. There's no, in my opinion, lulls. There's no things that I wish happened faster. Yeah, exactly. The pacing really good. And it's just like a really, at the end of the day, heartwarming, lovely musical theater movie. I am going to give this 4.5 Josh Bassett in a backwards hat out of 5. Because as soon as Josh Bassett entered the screen wearing a backwards hat, I texted you immediately. Followed up by
a backwards baseball hat.
His name is Anthony. And Anthony's are ruining our lives currently.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's all of that.
Exactly.
But yeah, if you happen to have Disney Plus and you are able to stream Better Nate Than Ever, you definitely should. And with that being said, it is now time for our obsession of the week.
So my obsession, speaking of Anthony's that are ruining our life right now.
Oh my God.
As everyone knows, season 2 of Bridgerton just came out. I mean, it did not just came out. It just came out for us. And,
it just came out for us. At time of record, it came out 2 weeks ago, and we've already watched it multiple times.
Yeah, it's amazing. Love it. But my obsession, so something that Bridgerton is known for is using covers of pop music in the show.
It's so good.
It's so good. I think it functions in a similar way to a jukebox musical, where these are songs that we are familiar with. So when you hear, you know, the strings playing Thank You Next, which I think is their best use of music in season 1, you immediately understand the dating world of the marriage mart in Regency England. So season 2, they amped that up. They used even more pop covers or covers of more modern music to kind of emphasize the character's emotions in different moments. We love Dancing on My Own in episode 4. That was a wonderful use. Loved Wrecking Ball in episode 8. Really great use. They used a song from a Bollywood movie in episode 6, which I think was like really special, especially for so much representation in this season. But the song that I'm going to call out, because they released a special version of it, is the instrumental version of You Oughta Know that is at the end of episode 5. And they released a version with Alanis Morissette singing over it. So,
I haven't heard this.
You haven't heard it? Oh, wow, I get to surprise you. So the artists who do it on the show are Duomo and Chroma, and they have the instrumental version. And then as part of promotion for the show, they have released a music video with Alanis Morissette singing You Oughta Know over this orchestral instrumental version of You Oughta Know. And I watched the music video and it's amazing. You know, this is it's like a great breakup song, and it's used in the show in kind of a breakup moment for our main characters. This is one of the many times that they say goodbye to each other.
Yep.
It's one of the many times they say goodbye to each other. But
after maybe the greatest cinematic scene on TV of all time.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you just like start hearing that like little bit of strings, and then
it's actually so interesting because in the episode
you don't recognize it until later.
No, until they like actually meet and you hear the like da 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 da. But before that, you just hear like different notes, and it's
just like very soft, and you're like, what is this? I don't recognize this. And then it's da da da.
That one was a really smart way to introduce that song. Yeah.
I thought it was so well used because that song is so much angst, and you're watching these two characters who are kind of like devastated in this moment, and it like matches both of their emotions so well. And then spoilers for Bridgerton season 2, who hasn't watched it 7 times already by the time this episode comes out, but he's riding away on his horse and you're shooting back to her and she's like
crying.
This is the first time you've seen like major emotion from her. And you're just like, wow. So my obsession, because we gotta love Alanis, we support a Canadian queen, and we support someone who's had a jukebox musical. You Oughta
Know has been an obsession at least 3 times in our podcast.
It's one of the greatest songs. It just works every time. Yeah. So, You Oughta Know by Alanis Morissette featuring Duomo and Chroma. It is kind of a combination of the version used in Bridgerton and also Alanis' original version, and it's just like really gorgeous. That's my obsession this week.
And while we're here, a huge congratulations to Barlow and Bear for winning a Grammy for the unofficial Bridgerton album. I know that there are like many thoughts on the internet. I don't care what anyone else thinks. This is a huge win. That album is amazing. And I feel like over the last...
It's an independent album. It's crazy.
Everything is done by themselves. We've talked about it. I feel like in the last 2 years of recording, we've been on that like journey from the first TikTok all the way to the Grammy Awards. So a huge congrats to them. If you have not listened to the unofficial Bridgerton album, go listen to it. And like, I cannot wait to see what they do next, because this is obviously not the end for them.
This is an amazing calling card for them. You know, they walk into a room, it's like, I'm a Grammy Award winning composer, lyricist. What about it?
I know. It's so exciting. Okay, my obsession this week, I can't believe that this hasn't been an obsession previously because, as I said, we did a High School Musical episode, but I feel like when we did our High School Musical episode, the show hadn't finished season 1 yet. I could be wrong. No. It's been a while since we recorded that episode.
It's been years.
Because I looked back to see, and the only songs that we talked about were, I Think I Kinda You Know and Wondering. There is a video on YouTube. This is pre-Sour. This is pre-breakup. This is Josh and Olivia in their prime of them singing Just for a Moment. You know the video because you've seen it
like
many
the acoustic
times.
one. Is she wearing the suit? Yes.
Yes.
It's like a gray box.
She's wearing an amazing
Familiar.
like maroon suit. She's got an incredible blue eyeshadow, and I want to say this was like peak romance for them. It is so cute just watching them interact with each other in the same day they recorded Start of Something New. But I love this song. Just for a moment, it's like such a great song. They wrote it together, right?
And they wrote it, right?
Yeah.
They wrote it together, yeah.
Even that,
so it's
see,
extra
like,
special.
Something so great about that show was that someone like Tim Federle, who executive produced, like gave these two kids the chance to write their own music for a franchise that is massive. Like, you just don't get the chance. I feel like Tim is one of those people that gives kids opportunities.
He loves to foster talent. He's really excited about fostering talent. So giving them the opportunity to write a song for their characters that they knew probably better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And write it together was probably so special.
Yeah, it's just a super sweet song. It's sung so well by both of them. The video I'm obsessed with. I've watched it a million times. So I figured what a perfect episode to bring this song back. So yeah, that is our obsessions and also our thoughts on Better Nate Than Ever. And just thinking, at time of episode release, the Tony Awards are like 2 weeks away. Can we believe?
Yeah, it's very close. It's crazy.
So if you want to listen to any of our other episodes, you can do that by subscribing to our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, and we would really appreciate it if you left us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe.
And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Off2BWay Podcast. That's with the number 2.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.